So I noticed that as I was growing up, I would be a little hesitant in group situations. I wasn't the most extroverted person. I wasn't sure how to handle myself and communicate in a way that worked well in a group situation. I was a little better with one-on-one experiences. The ability to keep my presence in conversation was really hard for me. Over the years, experiencing meditation and living more consciously, it was easier to be mindful and present when I was with myself. It was always a challenge when with others. I used to attend these silent meditation retreats, and the momentum of practice, which got quite built up over 7, 8, 9, 10 days, on the last day when we began speaking, I found I just wasn't able to be aware in the same way. So it was a very important learning for me to learn to keep mindfulness going in relationship, in communication, in conversation. So I'm going to share with you certain principles and practices that I have found very helpful in keeping mindfulness and awareness in conversation, making conversation also a kind of meditation. First of all, what is meditation? Meditation is awareness. Awareness of what is happening. And awareness without an expectation of how it should be, could be, or would be. Just awareness. Being with things the way they are. Without having a strong preference of how they should be, because that's what creates a distortion in the field of experience. So now bringing that same kind of meditative attention within a conversation. So some principles come from this kind of practice. For example, the principle of making an effort to understand the other person's world. What's it like to be you? Much of the time, one tends to be preoccupied with oneself. There's a story of a man who was going to a party with his wife. And as they were driving there, a thought occurred to him that most gatherings I go to, I try to be an interesting person. I try to be the person that everyone likes and acknowledges. But what if for this party today, instead of being an interesting person, I choose to focus on being interested instead? So he spent that entire party asking questions and trying to understand the other person's experience more than bringing attention to himself. And something remarkable happened. When you give your full attention to someone, they can actually feel that, because attention actually is a kind of love. And giving your full attention to someone really makes them feel received, makes them feel seen. By the end of that party, people were very mesmerized by him. And they were asking his wife, "Is that your husband? He's amazing." And all the things that he was trying to get by being interesting, he achieved by being interested. When you're interested, you learn a lot more than when you're trying to be interesting. So this is the principle of curiosity and wonder. Shifting from my space to getting curious about your space. And in that process, enlivening the we space of our togetherness. So meditation in conversation is about bringing awareness not only to oneself, but curiosity and wonder about what's going on with you. And checking the assumptions we make. As we ask questions and tend to clarify our understanding, the other person has a chance to tell us and correct what we're assuming about them or what they just said or that facial expression they just made. So the principle of wonder and curiosity coupled with checking our assumptions is really powerful. Another really powerful experience that I had came from the practice of sharing what I'm noticing. This comes from the authentic relating and circling movement. It's a grassroots movement that's spreading across the world. And they're building the muscle of how to bring presence into our everyday life. So I'm noticing, like for example, if I'm speaking now, I'm noticing I'm feeling very settled. And I have a kind of you could say enthusiasm in my heart to just talk about this thing that's so close to me, that I find so beneficial to me and others. And I'm noticing this, and as I just shared that with you right now, you became a little aware of what's happening in my world. And I can also check what's happening with you. So if you were here with me, then I could say, you know, as I'm with you right now, I notice you're sitting a bit to the side. And I wonder if Your attention is somewhere else. Or maybe you're looking out into the distance. And then you could clarify and say, actually, I'm really finding what you're saying very interesting, and that's my way of processing it. It's not that I'm distracted, or maybe you are distracted, right? So the power of checking and saying, is that true? Is that true? Gives a person a chance to clarify what they're experiencing. So I'm revealing my experience, and I'm getting an insight into your experience. They talk about, in this field of authentic relating, the three kinds of conversation: informational, personal, and relational. Most of us are aware of the first two. The third one comes like news to some of us. Informational is when I talk about just facts, what's going on, right? Like the time of the day, or when we're meeting next. What work do you do? This is all informational. Personal is a little bit closer to our hearts. It's like the stories of how we feel. It's like what's going on in our lives, which you don't tell everybody. And then relational is what's alive in me right now as I'm with you in this moment. And this is where conversation can become meditation, because it's changing all the time, moment by moment. The principle of welcoming whatever arises. In meditation, this is the meditative principle, welcoming everything, resisting nothing. Normally from moment to moment, when something pleasant happens, we want to hold on to it and we want to have more of it. Slightest unpleasant happens, we want to push it away. And slightest neutral thing happens, we get bored, we get restless. In meditation, we learn to be equally curious in all these three: pleasant and unpleasant and neutral. And that's meditative awareness. And to bring that into conversation. And a really important principle of connecting deeply is to honor oneself and honor others. Because just because it's being authentic doesn't mean I have to tell you every single thing about myself. That's not appropriate. So I honor myself by honoring my life journey. And there's a certain dignity in everyone's life journey. Each one of us, whatever experience we've had, no one else in the whole world, in the whole universe, has ever had exactly that experience. And so there's a certain inherent dignity in that. Even in my sadness, there's a certain dignity. No one has experienced exactly that tone of sadness ever before. It's unique. And similarly, humility, I don't really know. I can assume I know what's happening with you, but I don't really know. So the curiosity and the humility, that's how I honor you. I check in with you. So like this, seeking to understand more deeply, being interested more than interesting, welcoming whatever arises in our experience, revealing our experience, taking ownership for what's happening within us, owning our experience, clarifying our assumptions, and honoring self and honoring others, leaning into our edge, leaning into what is maybe uncomfortable, unfamiliar. Because that's where the magic is. If you always remain in the comfort zone of what you know, how will you ever experience aliveness? Aliveness comes from leaning into your edge. So these are some principles that I found really helpful. And if I had to summarize all of this down to one simple practice, I would just say, slow down. When you allow some breath to come between the conversations. When someone speaks, don't respond immediately. Take a moment, take a breath, pause. Reflect on what the person just said. How did it land on you? What happens inside of you at a physiological level when you hear that? Do your thoughts start racing? Do you want to advise the other person? Do you want to fix the other person? So what's it like to be here in this moment with you, one person or a group of people? What's it like? What is my experience like? To voice that is a form of horizontal meditation. The vertical meditation is me in my own experience. The horizontal meditation is me with you in conversation in a relational space where I'm connected to what's alive in me and I'm curious about what's alive in you. And all together we're becoming from a me mind to a we mind. And we're accessing this we space. It's an actual shift in consciousness. The people who practice this, they have a nice phrase for it. They say, you drop in. You literally drop in. It's like your consciousness shifts gears, like literally the gear of a car shifting. You can feel that inner shift happening. It's like I just shifted from only being aware of myself to suddenly accessing a we space. And perhaps that's what birds experience when they fly together in formation. Or fish experience when they swim together in formation. Or ants experience as they move together in formation, or bees experience as they do a bee dance in their hive. It's a hive mind. It's a collective consciousness. And deep down, perhaps we are thirsting for this because we know this is possible, but we're not always sure how to get it. We accidentally stumble into it once in a while with a conversation with a friend or with a small group of people. It happens kind of accidentally. But with these principles, we can start practicing. It can become far more available. And I've chosen to be a student of connection in this lifetime. Connection with self, connection with other, and connection with life itself. And meditation in conversation, conversation as meditation is a really important way to bring this aliveness and alertness into everything I do throughout my day. All of life becomes a practice. Earlier, when I was young, I saw connecting with others and relationships as a kind of a disturbance in my practice. But no more. In fact, it's such a rich field for me to become aware of how I assume things about myself, how others perceive me. It is so alive, it is so rich, and so many blind spots have been opening up as I've opened myself up to this way of being and knowing and living. So I invite you to practice with any one of the things I've said today. I've said a lot of things. Take any one idea, something as simple as revealing your experience. What's alive in you in this moment? And see where that takes you in this journey of making relationship and conversation meditation. Thank you.